Hello all. Welcome to Module 2. This is take 2. The first video I posted didn't have any audio for some reason. I have no idea why. So I am re-recording this early in the morning on Monday. Hopefully this works. So in this video, which is longer than usual, I'll briefly go over the requirements for the week, and then I'll talk a little bit more about the concept of intersectionality since it's so important for this class. I don't often, like I said, this is a longer video. I don't often talk at length about content in these weekly videos. That's reserved for the lectures. But in this video, I'm doing something a little differently so that you, just to help you, deepen your understanding or make sure you fully understand the concept of intersectionality. Okay, but first I wanted to draw your attention to this discussion forum called News Items, Recommendations and Announcements, and it's at the end of each module. So in my in-person classes, I usually start the class with this, and it helps get the conversation going, helps get students more comfortable engaging in conversation, and also, helps to develop a sense of community in the classroom, and the news part of this helps to connect the relevance of women's history to the present day. So the news we talk about is usually something to do with women, gender, sexuality, or it's just, it could just be something that we're thinking about. There's a lot happening in the news right now, and you might be preoccupied with whatever's happening, like the fires, the coronavirus, I don't know what's happening with the economy, and so on. So recommendations should be, I don't know, you've probably heard cats in the background. Recommendations should be related to women's history, and they can be books, TV shows, movies, music, etc. Announcements are about college and community events that you think would be of interest to the class. So they don't actually have to be related to women, gender, and sexuality. If you are involved in a student club on campus and you have a meeting coming up, I know in-person meetings aren't really happening, but if you have a meeting coming up via Zoom or something, you can announce it to the class. Let's see what else. So that's it. So hopefully you participate. I think it tends to work a little bit better in my in-person classes because I really bug students about participating in this part of the class. So I hope it works though in the online class as well. I'll post some things as well. So today, what I'm going to do is there's one news item that I'm going to talk a little bit about. I'm going to talk about the Black Lives Matter movement, but I'm going to do so in the context of talking about the concept of intersectionality, which is foundational for the course. So it's really important that you understand what intersectionality means. But first, the requirements for the week. You can fast forward to the part of this video about intersectionality. This is something I write out in the first page of each module, but I thought it would be helpful for some of you for me to speak it in these videos, say it in these videos as well. So the first thing that you need to do is watch the 2 videos, aside from watching this video, is watch the 2 videos on feminism and intersectionality. Then you should complete the reading by Sharon Smith that's entitled Black Feminism and Intersectionality, which I chose because, it's a theoretical concept, and in trying to find a good reading for you, I came across this one, and I think explains the concept more clearly than a lot of the other readings I found do. Anyway, so complete the reading by Sharon Smith, Black Feminism and Intersectionality. Identify one of the additional sources from the list I provide on intersectionality. So there's a list of sources about intersectionality in addition to the required 2 videos and reading. So choose one of those sources to read or to listen to and use it in your discussion forum. So in your discussion forum post, you should be referencing 4 sources. The 2 short videos, the reading, and your 1 additional source. So then you need to participate in the discussion forum by this Thursday at 11:59 p.m. and respond to 3 classmates by Sunday at 11:59. these are the usual deadlines. I don't always require that you respond to 3 classmates. Sometimes I'll just require that you respond to 2, but I'm starting off with that requirement. And remember, you're responding to 1 person above you or below you in the discussion thread, and then 2 other people somewhere else in the discussion thread. It doesn't matter who, your choice. So to receive full credit, and I'm going to repeat this probably in welcome video, or each video that I post like this for the first few weeks, remember that you need to post or to include in-text MLA citations. So those are the parenthetical citations, but you also need the works cited section at the end, because MLA citations are not complete without both of those. And then, of course, you need your word count at the end of your post. So lastly, take the quiz on feminism and intersectionality by Thursday at 11:59 p.m. You have 2 chances, 15 minutes per chance. Make sure you take the whole time and confirm that you have the correct answer before moving on to the next question. You know, this is an open note quiz, so just confirm your answer is correct before moving on, especially any, well, all answers, but some of those fact-based answers. If you just skim the reading or skim your notes, you should be able to find the answer. You might have to, or skim the videos again if you need to. So I think you should, or I really want you to participate in the discussion forum before you take the quiz. The purpose of the discussion forum is that it's part of the learning process, so you have to articulate, you know, your own answers, but then you also read what other students have said. And so it's supposed to help you learn whatever we're talking about better. Okay, so those are the requirements. Now I want to talk more about the concept of intersectionality. So it's a concept that's new to most students, I found, and sometimes it can be difficult for students to wrap their minds around. So as you saw, or as I guess you will see, in my video, it's the end of the video on feminism, that intersectionality means, quote, the study of overlapping or intersecting social identities and systems of oppression. So I'll repeat that. It means the study of overlapping or intersecting social identities and systems of oppression. This is a term that was first coined by Kimberly Crenshaw in 1986, who was a legal scholar and a Black feminist. So take note, that is one of the quiz questions. So it's helpful, I think, to break down what each part of this quote means. First, the beginning, it says the study of. So this is a mode of analysis, right? Intersectionality itself is just a way to help you analyze our identities and our experiences around our identities in the world. It is not a bad thing. I've seen students say intersectionality is a bad thing because they're equating it with systems of oppression, but it's a mode of analysis that helps us understand how systems of oppression more deeply. So it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing, actually. So next, what does social identity refer to? You could probably hear the cat in the background. She's really going at it. She's trying to get her own tail right now. And she's hissing at herself. All right. The way our culture defines your identity according to what social group you belong to. So this is what social identity means. The way our culture defines your identity according to what social group you belong to. So your social identity is very important to determining your experiences of the world, how you're treated, what opportunities you have, and how you think about yourself and your feelings. So the social groups that you belong to, right, how society defines your social group is about race, gender, gender identity, gender expression, sexuality, religion, class, ability, disability, immigration status, and so on. So a whole host of factors, but these are social identities. You know, we can't be reduced. Our humanity can't be reduced to our social identities. We are more complex, you know, as human beings, we're more nuanced and complex than that, but we are very shaped by our upbringing and how our culture defines us. So let's see, what are my social identities? I am white, I am gay and gender nonconforming, I'm a woman, I am from a poor and working class background, though I'm middle class now. So I could list other things, but it will get more complicated if I do, so I'll just stop there for now. I could also say, for instance, that I'm a citizen, I'm able-bodied, and so on. So intersectionality tells me that I am each one of these things, and I'm together, right? I'm not each one of these things separately. I'm not, a woman over here, middle class over here, and white over there. I am, all of my social identities merge, right? They come together, they intersect to impact my experiences in the world. Um, so for this class, right, I'm not only a woman, but I'm a woman that, right, my experiences being a woman in this world are shaped by other factors, by the fact that I'm white, for instance, among other things. So let's look more at how race and gender intersect to simplify things. We'll do that in a second. But first, I want to talk about what systems of oppression means. So what does oppression mean? It means domination by one group over another based on one's social identity. So domination by one group over another. Men over women, white people over people of color, straight people over queer folks, right? The wealthy over the poor, able-bodied over the disabled. So due to, right, racism, sexism, ableism, homophobia, and so on, right, one group has advantages over another group in our society. These systems of oppression confer very real material advantages and disadvantages based on social identity. So if we take race, let's look at the racial wealth gap, which you may have heard about before. The typical white family has about $117,000 in wealth, while the typical black family has about $1,700,000 or $1,700, right? $117,000 for the typical white family, $1,700 for the typical black family, and the typical Latino family has about $2,000. That's a huge disparity in wealth. And what is wealth? Wealth is not just our income, but it's all assets. It's our stock, our investments, our stocks. It's our housing. Most people actually store their wealth in their housing. It's our savings account. It's our retirement. It's the cars that we own. So it's all of our assets. So why is this? Why does this gap exist? And this is something we'll talk a little bit more, of course, or a lot more about in the class. But it's due to, of course, a very long history of discrimination, as well as the persistence of racial discrimination. It hasn't gone away because a couple of laws were passed. We have hundreds of years of racial discrimination that exists, right, in our society that doesn't just evaporate. We have to work on it to make racial discrimination go away. We can't just pretend it doesn't exist anymore and then it'll just slowly fade. So most people's wealth is stored in their homes, like I said, and due to the history of discrimination and segregation, for instance, black families were denied the right to buy homes in neighborhoods where home values were higher. Banks often denied black families mortgages to buy homes. And then, of course, black families tend to be discriminated against by banks and real estate agents to this day, though that discrimination has taken on different forms. So I mention all this to just, make clear that these systems of oppression based on our social, right, treat us differently based on our social identity, and they confer very real material advantages. It's not just psychological, right? This is not just how we individuals treat each other. It's about the opportunities that we have in our lives because of our social identity. Okay, so now I would like to, the last thing I want to do for the next few minutes is take this definition of intersectionality again, right? The study of overlapping social identities and systems of oppression. I want to take it and apply it to the institution of policing and the Black Lives Matter movement in the United States. So I could talk about this for a long time, but I'm trying to be concise. And just a warning: this is a difficult topic. I know um, for like many of you, especially if you are Black, right, and you have been experiencing this sort of seeing what's going on, the police violence against African Americans. I know it's a difficult topic. So, so over the summer, we heard about police or vigilante murders of African Americans. We've heard of the murder of Breonna Taylor, of George Floyd, of Ahmaud Arbery, of Tony McDade, who's a Black trans man, and of Elijah McClain, among others. Last week, we heard about James Blake, who was a Black man who was shot 7 times in his back by police. And he's now in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and he's now paralyzed from the waist down. So in response to this police violence, we have seen thousands of people demonstrate in the streets calling for racial justice across the country, in small towns and large cities, right? Insisting that Black Lives Matter, as what we're seeing is, right, police violence against Black lives. So it's important to affirm that Black Lives Matter in a context in which Black lives are being treated, Black people are being treated as if their lives don't matter due to police violence. It's not to say that other lives don't matter, right? To affirm that Black lives matter. So we've seen protests all over the country, including in Sacramento, including recently over the last couple of nights. Most of these protests have been peaceful. There has been some property destruction. So you've seen also that there's been vigilante violence. We saw in Portland. We don't know all of what happened in Portland. Just, I think it was last night. Could be losing track of time, but and then several days ago we saw in Kenosha, Wisconsin, that 2 Black Lives Matter protesters were killed by a 17-year-old, Kyle Rittenhouse, who was armed with an AR-15 style rifle, right? Seriously injured another person and killed 2 people. So before going further, I do think it's important to recognize, right? So again, as an educator at a college that's supposed to promote and racial equity, that Black Lives Matter, and that as somebody who is white, and this is where I'm thinking about my racial identity, I can never truly understand what it feels like to see people who look like me repeatedly shot, right, murdered by the police who are hired to protect me. So if I look at my race and my gender as they intersect, right, I'm a white woman and I have a white son, and my experiences are not the same as a Black mother. With regard to my son's racial identity and his gender, the way those intersect in his life, he's only 4 months now, but when he gets older, I want him to learn about his identities, right? Learn about his privileges. I want him to work in solidarity with people of color to demand racial justice, right? That's one of the things that I worry about is I want him to, just be an empathetic person who cares about racial justice, right? Who wants to end racism in our society. And that's very different from what a Black mother with a Black son or a Black daughter worries about, right? A Black mother might worry about their child being stopped by the police, right? And what the consequences of that stop will be, the violence that might ensue. A routine stop might turn deadly, right? That's something that generally I don't have to worry about as a white mother. So that's a big difference, and that's about my gender as well as my race. So I know this is a very emotional example of how we can examine our own experiences through an intersectional lens. But I think it helps, right? It's relevant. We're taking this class to the present. It's also something we're thinking about. So I think it's important to talk about. And it helps to, I think, make clear why it's important to look at women's history through an intersectional lens. Not all women's experiences are identical because we are women, right? We must look at how other categories, how race, how ethnicity, class, sexuality, gender identity, and expression ability, religion, right, immigration status, other categories, how these categories shape women's lives to have a more nuanced and complex understanding of women's history. Okay, so I know this video got a little long. Usually these videos will be under 10 minutes. And that's it. If you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to email me, to talk to me in office hours. I have an open door policy. So please remember that and talk to me about this, okay?